And welcome to Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations out of the box. This webinar is being recorded, and all interested can follow the event afterwards. All attendees are in listen mode only, so please use your Q&A panel to ask any questions. My name is Pedro Herrera. I work at Capgemini as a functional consultant in the supply management area. Our goal today is to present you with a loudspeaker standard cabinet assembly. It's a make-to-stock process. The demonstration will cover a high-level end-to-end make-to-stock flow for a discrete manufacturing process. It shows the basic capabilities for creating a forecast, running a master planning, and running the manufacturing process. In today's agenda, we will take a look at the product information details, demand forecast, the master planning, production plan, the production order, and finally we'll see how the planned cost versus the realized cost compare. In this demo, we'll review some details of the product information that will be used here. We will create a demand forecast. We will run the master planning. We will review the planned production orders that are created to meet the forecast demand. We will firm a planned orders into a production order. We will release that production order into production. We will adjust the estimated amount of material used and the time consumption that it took. We will report as finished and as end the production order when it's completed. And finally, we will review the planned cost against the realized cost. So basically, the scenario that we're talking about today it's around how a loudspeaker is assembled. So it is a basic process, and the bill of materials for that assembly has a wiring harness, it has a mid-range speaker unit, it has a tweeter speaker, it has a crossover, and of course it has a standard cabinets for that. So basically, the assembly line will put all this together and put that and package it and put it in stock. So with any further delay, let's just start on how the production process will work in finance and operations. So I'm going to switch here to my main dashboard. As after I logged into finance and operations, this is what I get. So the first thing we're going to cover is a product information. Okay, so I'm going to go into the product information management, release products, and this particular case is a standard cabinet, and it is this item right here, which is the D0003. And we will start by seeing a few details as we go along that are crucial for the assembly process. Okay, so the first thing we need to see here is that from the product side, this item is tracked at the warehouse, at the site and a warehouse level. So it's important to keep that in mind. There's no further tracking dimension, means that we don't need any batch or serial number control over that. And another important fact here is that the item model group is a standard. So basically, this is most used in this in the assembly process, which is a standard cost. Okay, and the reason, and I think if I'm correct, that at least 85% of the manufacturing process basically uses this, and it's because they set a cost, and so that they can afterwards track any variations of it related to the production, and that's what we will see at the end. Okay, from the managed inventory side, we'll see that we are starting with none. There's none of it in stock because this is a make to stock scenario. So so we can confirm that. Also, if we check here in the engineering, we'll see the BOM version. Okay, and the important fact about this is it has to be active and it has to be approved in order to come into production. So as we saw on the slide, this finished product is comprised by basically one piece of each, meaning the wiring, the mid-range, the tweeter, the crossover, and the standard cabinet. Other than that, we can see that we have on the engineering, we have the route, and basically the route will show us what jobs and steps are required to complete this. So as we can see here, we have an assembly, we have initial testing, then we have a secondary testing, and then finally we have a packing, okay, to put that then in stock. So we have in here, we have all the information that is required, including any setup, any time that is required. So basically we can see here that as far as this is concerned, we require 4 units, okay, per hour. Okay, so that gives us about 6.5 days, 6.25 days to complete not one piece, but basically a 200 lot size production. After that, we can come here and let's initiate this by cleaning out the and setting up a plan. Okay, we don't have a forecast, a demand forecast plan. So what I'm going to do right now is to initiate the demand, basically create a new demand for that. And I'm going to create a new, and I'm going to say that I'm going to use the forecast, current forecast. And I'm going to say that for that item and for this particular warehouse, this is our finished goods warehouse, I'm going to estimate that we're going to require at least 200 units. Okay. And I'm going to save it. Now, at this moment, I need to tell the system how many units I'm going to be creating on what interval. So I'm going to allocate that. So I'm going to allocate the forecast. I'm going to say, okay, I want to allocate this by period. Okay, and each period is going to be 1. Okay, and the units is month. So basically what I'm saying is that I'm going to create a demand forecast of 200 units for every month ending 1 year from today. So let's say that it will be the 10 February 2022. Okay. So when I do that, the system will compute all that and put it in here. So it's going to take it into account when we run the master planning. As we move along, okay, we don't want to see anything else from here. So I'm going to close that. We also can, after that, we can check some cost information. So we go to the manage cost here, and we have some interesting and key performance indicators right now that we can use. Of course, this will change when the production is finished, but basically if I click on inventory statement and KPIs, the system will out of the box tell me from this quarter to from this date to this date, which is basically Q1, or I can select any other interval, okay, period to date or Q2 or whatever. So let's say that as Q1. As you can see, we see some dynamic images and KPIs of how it's the behavior of the inventory and what's the inventory turn and the accuracy and the days in inventory. And of course, as we will see later on, some of these graphs will be interactive. So as you press along, you will see how you can drill down into them. Okay, so this gives us a very clear view of how the inventory has been turning and moving along the days. Now at this point, I'm going to close here the product information management, and let's go back to the main dashboard so we can see how the master planning is performed. So coming back to my master planning, as you can see here, it's all empty, so there's nothing in there. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run the master planning. Okay, so it's gonna take all that information in there. And as we can have multiple items to run the plan for, but I have filtered this to only take into account the loudspeaker. So I'm going to run it. It's going to take a few seconds, and then I'm going to refresh it so we can see the results of that. Okay, operation is complete. I'm going to refresh. And the system, what it does, it comes up with plan orders, but these plan orders are not only planned for the final product, as we can see here, the D3, but if the system finds it needy of it, it will actually create any purchase orders that he might suggest in order to fulfill this. Now, I know for a fact that I have enough inventory left to at least complete this trial, okay, for M1, M2, M3, and M4, and of course M7. So I'm going to come here in plan orders, and I'm going to pick the first order for that loudspeaker, which is this one right here. Now, the first thing I need to, the first thing I want to do here is that once I know that I have enough material and that the production assembly is ready, the first thing I need to do is firm that. Okay, because it's saying, okay, we're gonna create this, and it's fine. So, okay, so we have approved this. So that's what firm means. Once we've done that, we'll go. It will disappear from here. Okay, and at this point, I'm going to go into the production control and all production orders, and I can see here, we can see here that it has been scheduled. Now, once the item is scheduled, okay, basically we need to at this point we should be ready. I mean, we cannot start this production until we know that the resources and the materials required are ready. So once we know that, okay, we say release to that. So at this point, we're going to release it to the inventory, to the production. So at this point, it is ready to be picked up by the production floor and start working with it. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do next is after our release is to start. So basically, everything is in place. We have confirmed that that the materials and the resources are available. So I'm going to start it. Now, since I want to pick up and create manual entries for this, I'm going to change some values in here. And the first thing I want to know here is that the automatic route consumption, I'm going to set that to never because I want to manually put that in. And I don't want to post a route card nor post a picking list because I'm going to do the picking manually. Okay, so I'm going to click OK. And the production has started. Now, sometime along during the day and during the assembly, many will be they will be going back and forth through the warehouse and picking all the electronic components. And as we go, and in this case, we require one of each. So let's say that we have completed all the production, and I have the production and the picking list and the production control report at hand as a supervisor. So the first thing I want to do, here is I'm going to go and want to check what my picking list should look like. Okay, so I'm going to go. I went there to the picking list. I'm going to open the journal. Now, the journal is where we're going to start, and this will affect our estimated cost against our realized cost. As you know, when something is being assembled, okay, some components might be good, others might not, and then we have to adjust that, and that difference is going to be picked up once we post this and we have all the results in our cost analysis. Now, in this for this exercise, okay, I'm going to edit this because even though it for 200 speakers, the system recommended 200 units of each. Okay, it happened that for some reason I had to change these values. Maybe some components were damaged, others might not have worked, or some other issues or defect in it that wasn't acceptable and didn't pass any quality and assurance. Okay, so I'm going to change these values. Of course, I don't know those by heart, so I'm just looking at my report. Okay, and basically what I'm saying here is that they took all these items to complete those 200 units. Okay, once that's set, okay, I'm going to validate to make sure that every field that it's required is there. There shouldn't be any problem. Okay, that's great. And now I'm going to post it because there's no change to be there. Those figures have been confirmed. So I'm going to press OK. And we're done with that. So that now it's official. Okay, I've taken out all those items out of the inventory. Okay. I'm going to close this because I need to go back to the production. Okay, which is B3335. And the next thing, I have taken out the picking list. So now all the materials have been registered. Now I need to register and record all the resource consumption that was involved during this. So I'm going to go into the job card, which is right here. Okay, should be here. Okay, I'm going to click new. I need to fill some details. This is a job card I need to create. Okay, this is the relationship for that production. Okay, everything is there. I click OK. And the next thing I need to do is take my production report, and I can either copy this here or I can enter it manually. Okay, so I'm going to start with my first job. Now, do you remember that we had the first job that started this is basically the assembly. So the assembly resource is reporting that it took 52 hours to complete 200 good units. Okay. Afterwards, the primary testing resource has reported that it took 38 hours to complete 200. Okay. And then the secondary testing, which is basically the overall system testing, okay, it took also 38 hours. Now, remember that these are parallel jobs, okay, steps. So it doesn't mean that it has 38 plus 38. It means that it actually took 38 hours to complete the both, okay. And finally, we have that the packing process was reported that it took 15 hours to complete. However, we had only 98 good speakers, and we had 2 speakers that were defective. Okay, maybe the casing was chipped or damaged. Who knows? Okay. Also remember that I'm doing this manually, but basically this is linked to the time card. So we can actually, if we have any device at the floor, we can capture this as we move along through the job, and we can put the start time and the end time and so forth. So this will automatically be built and calculated. Okay. Now the packaging process is the last step on that speaker assembly, which is the packing. So I'm going to say that for this step, this is the completion. Okay, but it also means that since this is the last step, I also want the production to be reported as finished. So having all that, all I need to do, well, I'm going to validate that to make sure that everything is good. So I don't see any problems there. And of course, I'm going to post. Of course, if I went directly to post, the system will validate it and then post. But it's just a means to make sure that everything is okay prior to doing that. So everything has gone fine. Okay, the write journals have been reported as finished. So I'm going to close that. Okay, we can see that it has been posted, has 4 lines. And the next thing to do at this point, we already have this in stock, but we do still have a last minute, not a last minute, but the last process is that the supervisor or the manager has reviewed all the information. He has found out there's no issues with it. So the last thing we can do is just end it. And I'm going to make sure that everything is okay. It usually takes more than, I think it takes like 6 days to complete all these 200, but I'm going to assume that's done today. So that's fine. I'm going to click OK. And by doing so, this is finished. There's no reason why to go back to this. And we can close this now. The production has been completed. And if I refresh this right now, okay, that production is ended. If I were to come here and click on inventory items and click inventory tab here, we can see that we have 198 items available now. And that's because out of the 200, two were damaged. I'm going to close. Okay. And having this completed, the only thing that we have left now is to understand some information in regards to what is the impact of all those changes into the cost. So I'm going to come here for a second and let's go back and we can see the view. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me close here. I want to go to all productions. Productions. I'm going to pick that one right there, this one right here. I'm going to click on Manage Cost. And we'll see that we have some nice information here. Okay, the first thing I want to share with you is the view calculation details. Now, this is going to detail us what and record all the costs that were involved during that production. Now, remember that, of course, we have a one-to-one relationship, but only 2 items were lost or damaged. So basically, in here we see all the items that were required. So 1 per assembly. This is the unit cost of each. So this is the harness, 4 pounds. So this is the tweeter, 80, and so forth. And then we can see the resources, how many hours it took to complete, at least on an individual basis. I'm going to move forward here, and we have the overview of the full production process. So we can see here that now it's telling me, okay, we have a 200 consumption, but only 198 were correct. So this is our estimated cost. And here is where we start looking at some of the information, is that the estimated cost is the cost that the system takes into account, taking the basis, so one item of each per speaker, okay, but then we lost 2. So accounting to that brings us to this amount, which is higher than the original estimate. And we can see here that we have separate different costing groups, and it's segregated as follows. Basically, this M means that it's material. So of course, these items are material items. This is a finished goods, which is M9. But we also have our direct labor. So we have basically 4 levels here. Okay. And then we have the overheads, which include the machine depreciation, internal logistics, and indirect cost. Moving a little along, we can see we have the overall calculation here, much brief as a record. But it's kind of interesting as we go along here, and we can see the costing sheet. And the costing sheet, we can basically review it at the individual item level or at a total. Okay. And we can see the estimate here or the real costing. So as you can see, there's a difference between the estimated cost, which was 168.74, against the real production cost, which was 174 and a little bit more. Okay, so that's one of the reports that we can see as far as the analysis is concerned. Now we can move into the cost comparison. Now this is a much graphical view of the cost and variance, and in here, let me see if I can put this a little bit bigger. Okay, we see the total cost and the unit cost. Okay, I'm going to focus in here. Okay, for a moment. The active cost is what we have in accounting. The estimate was what was planned, okay, and the realized is the what the production actually cost. So between the difference between the active and the real estimated and realized is it's broken down here as what's the difference in planning, what is the difference in the production, and what was the total variance, which is the sum of these two. Now, these graphs are interactive. It's more like, yeah, it's interactive in the sense that if I want to see what was the components in direct materials, okay, I can click on that, and the system will tell me, okay, so we have materials in the class M1, M2, and M3. And if I click on either one of them, we can see that the system will tell me, okay, so this is how that direct material was composed. M1 was composed of the product M0002, M003, and M004. Okay, and I can I cannot drill down anymore, but I can go back here. Okay, and instead of checking this, I can maybe check another instance, and we can see how this component. This is the end case, the casing, the speaker's casing. Okay, we can see that because we lost 2, of course, we have a higher realized cost here. Okay, and then we can see here, we can always reset that and come back and forth and move along as we drill down. We can also do this at the unit level, and of course, I'm not going to go through that anymore. But you can just play around with it and see what my indirect cost and what's my variance here is, and you have your overheads right here and there. So it gives a graphical representation on and an understanding on where the production or the unit cost has varied against my standard calculation, which was 100 and total 50 something 64. Okay, I'm going to close here, and the last thing I wanted to go through is the actual reporting itself. Okay, so I'm going to go into the production control, inquiries and reports, and I should see here cost analysis reports and the estimated. When I click on that, Okay, this is filtered for a specific record. And if I click that, okay, we can see that this is ordered at a cost level group, so we know what the labor is, so we can see the hours, the consumption, the index. Now, the important thing here is that we can see the estimated against the real cost. So we have all the comparisons in here, and we can see that there's a difference in here from what was the original estimated 168 versus 174, which was the end cost per unit for this production order. Once we're here, there's nothing more to track other than the fact that if we go back to the production, to the product information management and release products, we can track and can see here in the inventory, in the managed inventory, the managed cost, we can see the inventory again, and how this has impacted and changed that. So again, this has the inventory days has increased, has decreased. I'm sorry, this has increased from 2 to 4, and that has decreased again. So the other thing we need to make sure here is that if we go to the managed inventory, we can click here on the on-hand inventory, and we now can see that that item is available for us to do whatever we require. We can transfer it, or we can complete this demonstration by basically going to the sales process, so the sales and marketing, creating a sales order. I'm going to click new. Okay, and I'm going to pick, let's say, one customer. Let's pick one, Los Angeles here. He has called in and he said that he wanted 20 units for the speakers. Okay, so I'm going to say that. Let's confirm that. Okay, I'm going to put some dates in here, which is today's date, because it's already in stock, so we can just deploy it. I don't want to print that. It's the sales process is there, like the sales order has been taken. Finally, if we want to, we can go here and deliver it. So let's say that the customer is picking it up, or a truck has been picked up, it's picking up this merchandise. I'm going to say yes. Okay, let's confirm that. There are 20 items. The warehouse will pack that, and only 20 of them were going to be picked. I confirm that. So it's already on the truck and going on its way to Los Angeles. As our last step, since it's been delivered, is to, of course, issue the invoice in the system. I'm going to click here on invoice, generate invoice, and the system will automatically take care of that. Document date is today as well. Again, there's nothing else to take here into account for that line. So yes. And the invoice has been issued and can be sent electronically or by postal or whatever means. So this is basically the end of the demonstration. As you can see, it's a pretty straightforward process. And you can see from what we've seen how we can track the variances in costs and the impact of that into the production process. So that's basically the end of the demo. If you have any questions, you can, of course, write into the Q&A and we'll respond to that as soon as possible. So thank you very much for joining, and hope you will